this word is not just for you all, but it is for myself as well, where I'm going to be talking about the blessing and the break, and how I know that everyone is going so hard about it being the fourth quarter and that we need to close out strong. And, like it's like you got to rush and get things done because it's almost it's the new year. The new year is coming and we got to accomplish all these things. And I don't think that there's anything that's wrong with that. Um, and I mean, working towards your goals and everything, that's all great. But I'm wanting to look at it in a different perspective at this point. Um, and that is to just be, like, just be still, stop, reflect, and think on the goodness that has taken place so far. I think we get so caught up in doing that we forget to be and just be thankful for the place that we are in and just see the growth that we've already established. Um, like being in the moment where there is think about like family and friends. They're still here. Like take that moment to reflect on that. Think about the happiness, think about the joy that you've experienced so far and reflect on that. The present right now is where God really wants us to stop and just marvel at what he's done for us so far. Um and when something comes to me, I be trying to find a scripture for everything. It don't always work, but I be trying. So for this one, Luke 10, Luke 10, 38 and 42 was the scripture reference that I found for this. And this goes back to Mary and Martha, where Jesus is traveling and he stops by and he's at the house with Mary and Martha. So I'm going to read a little bit. As Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he taught. But Mary was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and said, "Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come and help me." But the Lord said to her, "My dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her." So, are we so busy doing things, even if it is for God, that we forget to pause, to break, and to spend time with him, the one that gave us all of these things? God is very pleased with the work that we're doing. I mean, why wouldn't he be? I mean, he established us to work, to perform. He created us as beings to live out. So I don't want us to doubt that he doesn't want us to continue, but he does care about our priorities. How are we going about acknowledging him even with the things that he's given us? While we are running the race. We're all on the track together and we're moving. Shouldn't say a track, but it's more of like a marathon versus a sprint. We don't have to be so fat. Like we can strategically pace ourselves to do what needs to be done. We're going to win it regardless. We're all destined to win. And we already know that everyone may be at different pace, at a different speed, but at the end of the day, there's a finish line for all of us. So while we're on our run, while we're on our journey, we don't want to forget the pleasures of life. Learning ourselves, knowing what works for us, what doesn't work, what excites us, what doesn't. Like just marvel in the moment. We're checking off these boxes like, we have this checklist or it's a competition, but it doesn't really have to be that way. And I'm not saying to be so, don't be slowful where we're spending so much time where we might be calling it rest and it could be identified as laziness. Now, I'm not saying to be that slowful, but I do want to say that it's important that we be intentional and have that mindset of pacing ourselves and not just working just because we're getting something done. So I'm going to go into breaks. The first thing is breaks allows us to pause and to rest. When we pause and we rest, when we come back, it's like we have this renewed energy. So think of the fact of you're like resetting yourself up with more energy when you take that break. Breaks are often associated with guilt because most of us, I'm going to make this a personal thing, we feel like we're not doing anything if we're breaking. I'm not working towards anything if I'm taking this break. Sometimes even breaking, it's like you still on your phone, you still doing this, you're still doing that. And it's like sometimes the best things come when we're in that do nothing stage. I promise you. Sometimes I've had my greatest revelations when I wasn't doing anything, mind at ease. Breaks are like sleep and food. You can't skip that if you want to function properly. It's like sleep and food. It's something that we need. Breaks helps us to decompress and manage our stress better. If you're constantly building, stress is building as well. You have to find a place or a time or whatever, an outlet to where you can relax. Because if you don't, you pile on stress and then you end up developing chronic stress. And then eventually that's going to turn into burnout. So taking frequent breaks can help you reduce that stress and prevent it from accumulating over time. Breaks are a good way to break up the routine. It helps you engage in something that is different. It helps you engage in something that relaxes you. It can help lift your mind, lift your mood. By doing something, do something that you enjoy. Breaks fuel creativity. Now, I know for me, I can go hard with whatever it is that I'm working on. But something, when you start looking at something too long, you be like, look, I can't concentrate on this no more. You go away from it. You come back and it's like you have a new idea or you have a better idea now that you've went away from it for a while and then you came back to it. So taking those frequent breaks allows you to detach and then come back and then you have this like new perspective on whatever it is that you're working on. Another scripture that came to mind was that one. Hold on, y'all. Psalm 37, 3-5, where it says, "Trust in the Lord and do good. Then you will live safely in the land and prosper. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desires. Commit everything you do to the Lord. Trust him, and he will help you." In order for us to receive what God has for us, all we really have to do is just position ourselves to receive what it is that he wants to give us. We don't have to be out here like that whole "I'll sleep when I'm dead" and we work until midnight. Like, that's for the birds. I'm not doing that. I shut down at a certain time and then I'm waking back up in the morning. But if you're trusting in the one who's given us these abilities and you're seeking him out, he's going to provide it for you. Like, it's really that simple. Um, Another thing is that rest, taking a rest, is a holy thing. Remember back in Genesis, I think it was one of those where he talked about the Sabbath day, and the the religious people gonna get caught up on what day is really the Sabbath. Us non-traditional people, any day can be a Sabbath day. Take that rest and use that moment can be your holy day, whatever that day is for you. um and looking at that I'm looking at Mark 2:27. Mark 2:27 says, then Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of people, and not people meeting the requirements of the Sabbath. So it's not about us making up a day, but that day is used for us. And that's the day that gives us rest and refuel. He intended the Sabbath to be like a focus day, regain, reset, refuel. It's okay to have lazy days. So practical tips. I'm going to give something practical for you to go forth through this, and that is to set aside some quiet time. I want you to make an honest assessment of where you currently are in regards to how you observe rest, how important it is to you, how often do you schedule it, can you even schedule it with your current schedule that you have? If it's not anything that's practical, how can you modify your schedule to make it practical? That's one thing. And then once you do that, just find a day. It doesn't even have to be a whole day, but you can just find maybe scheduling 20-30 minutes, and that is your time to avoid distractions. So I'm going to take my own advice and try really hard when it comes to being in the moment, being thankful and grateful for where I am now, and not be so focused and caught up on where I'm trying to go, and just like think and realize like you're pretty much far ahead than where you would have been, like where you was 3 months ago, where you was last week. Like the growth is still there no matter how it looks to you. I see it, and that's what makes the difference. I'm sure that's what he's saying to all of us.